Hi, my name is Yorgos Panagiotidis. You might know me as one of the hosts of the Perfect Information podcast, or the shot-for-shot fan remake of Zardos. Today I'd like to talk to you about something even more serious: funding. Thanks to a newly installed donate button on the website, we were able to help you help us with this show. Extraordinary people like Anthony, the Mark Boydell, Ben, your handwriting is atrocious, and not Donald Trump, and Mr. Duckworth, who I assume is a cast member of Duck Dynasty. Welcome aboard. If you would like to join the rank of those illustrious gamers, why not try a donate button as well? You might ask yourself, what will those numbnuts do with all that money? And a fine question that is.
Don't tell them about the dog racing.
Right, I won't, but we also invest in...
Don't tell them I'm a brony either.
Which is something we don't spend our money on, clearly.
All the aluminium hats.
Oh, come on now, that's just sound investment for the future. Fine, what should I tell them the money is for then?
I don't know. Oh, get out of the way. Right. Good people of Listerville, we will spend your hardly earned farthings on things befitting men of our station, like steam throttles and whiskets. Also, we shall endeavour to improve your listening experience by updating the tubes into which we speak. Also, your funds will help us visit such illustrious duels in the human firmament as Essen, Germany, and Rump.
You think they'll believe that? Sounds a bit far-fetched.
Of course. They'll believe anything. I mean, they truly believe that we're not the same person.
Yeah?
Wait a minute. Are you going to cut out everything I just said?
Of course, I'm not an idiot. Like, I would leave that kind of talk in something we publish. I'm definitely going to listen to it again and...
I love you, Rainbow Dash!
Ooh, look at that, Martha. I've never seen one like that before.
It's the new game, Spotlight. So, I'm very excited because we have here today, sitting in the virtual internet room that I occupy most of my life, an award-nominated designer who has come from nothing to ascend the brightest heaven of invention, and also might even be the first person to appear on the show twice.
Really?
Well, because you were on the Essence show last year.
I know, but I thought you were world famous by now, and you must have designers knocking on your door to come back.
Well, this is the point. We're very, very choosy, you see.
Oh, well, you're making me feel it. You already made me feel really nice with the introduction, and now you're just layering it on.
Well, it's your dusky Antipodean tones.
Wow,
you see,
I've never been described that way, but it's very kind of you. Thank you.
I'm here to make you feel good. So before we actually go on flirting terribly over the airwaves,
I'm sure someone must be enjoying this somewhere. I mean,
well, absolutely. There's a kink for everyone, I'm sure. So we have with us today. Would you care to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Matthew Dunstan, game designer and chemist by day, designer of Relic Runners, Elysium, and now Costa Rica, with the very able help of my co-designer, Brett J. Gilbert.
Yeah, so we're here to talk about today Costa Rica, which is a game I've just played. And when this is released, it should just be coming out onto the market. And can you give us your 20-second elevator pitch of what the game is?
Yeah, sure. Costa Rica is a game for 2 to 5 players where you are essentially a team of explorers going into the various jungles, mountains, and rivers of Costa Rica. And you're trying to take photos of the various wildlife there. And whoever gets the best collection of photographs is going to win the game. So you're definitely taking photographs. There's no kidnapping animals. That definitely was never the theme of the game.
I was a little disappointed, to be honest, because I'm usually consumed with bloodlust.
Well, I mean, if you wish to play it that way.
Yeah, how are the animals caught gameplay-wise?
Yeah, so the game's quite simple. You have a board made up of hexagonal tiles, and the tiles are of 3 types. And at the start of the game, they'll all be face down, and on the side that you can see will be one of 3 terrain types: mountains, rivers, or forests. And on the back of those tiles are some animals. And for each type of terrain, there are 2 different animals, a common animal and a rare animal. And the common animal just appears twice as many times. Also on some of the tiles, you might find a mosquito. And a mosquito, it represents danger for your party. And really the only thing you need to know is you really want to try and avoid collecting too many of those. And that certain terrain types have more mosquitoes than others. The other thing you'll do when you set up the game is each player will take 6 explorers in their color, and they're going to put one of them on each of the points of the hexagon. So there'll be essentially 6 groups with 1 explorer from each player. Play is very simple. On your turn, if you're the expedition leader, you choose one of the groups of explorers that has an explorer of your color in it, and you choose it to move on to a tile that's adjacent to where that group is. You flip over that tile, you'll find some animals, and then you have a choice. And your choice is, do you essentially take a photograph of that animal and end your expedition? If you do, you claim that tile and place it in front of you, and you also take your expedition person off from that group and put it in front of you, and you move then the rest of the group where the last tile was that you took. However, you might not want those animals. You might feel that one animal is not quite enough for you, so you might pass, and then it'll go around to all the other players who are in that group that you chose to move. And they have the same choice. Do they take the animal and take their person back, or do they pass? It might happen that it passes all the way back around to you as the expedition leader, and if so, you would move on again, and you would move the group to another adjacent tile, flip over that tile, and then you have exactly the same choice, except now you're choosing whether you're going to take both of the animal tiles or not. And it keeps going like this until somebody chooses to take the tiles, they take them and put them in front of them and take their expedition person back. And then it moves on to the next player to be the expedition leader. That's basically it, except for one wrinkle that if you ever reveal 2 mosquitoes in any one expedition, you immediately finish your expedition as the expedition leader. You'll take the tiles, discard the 2 that have a mosquito on them, and take your person back. So there's just a bit of a risk. If you've already revealed 1 mosquito, you might want to think about whether you might want to retreat and take what you've already got, or press on and press your luck.
Yeah, because your explorer then dies horrifically of malaria. That was my assumption.
Well, yeah, and unfortunately the photographs of the animals with the mosquitoes were mysteriously lost, so they don't count towards your scoring, which is sad.
Well, it's a well-kept secret amongst insect people. The mosquitoes actually do eat photographs.
Yeah, that's true. We have paid so much attention to the theme in this game that we made sure that we thought of that. And probably the only other thing just to mention is that it's a game of set collection, so scoring is really simple. At the end of the game, you score a certain number of points for each type of animal. Basically, you score an increasing number of points the more you have of a certain type. And you also score a bonus if you have one of everything, and you can score that bonus multiple times if you have multiple sets. So yeah, that's pretty much the game. I don't know how you found it, Ben. You told me you got a bit trounced.
Well, yeah, I was completely destroyed, but the thing is, I found that it's a push your luck game at its heart. You know, you've got to decide whether to turn the tiles over or to take what you've got, and there are certain, it's set collection, certain groupings, and you've got to decide what's best for you. But what I was really surprised by is it's not just push your luck. There is strategy to it. There's interesting decisions to be made, and you're not left to the vicissitudes of chance, which you are in a lot of push your luck games. You can control how well you do, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's right. I mean, I think that's something that we're definitely going for. I think the really nice thing that gets added to a sort of a more traditional push your luck game, I think of things like Ink and Gold off the top of my head, is that you have a really nice spatial element. And something I didn't really talk about was that, when you might have expedition groups that actually can be cut off if all the tiles around a particular group are taken, and then that group can't move on to anything adjacent to them, then they're just removed. And actually this kind of, I'm not sure how it played out in your games, but often there can actually even be a little bit of nastiness as players will try and sort of swoop up all the tiles around the other players' groups and sort of deny them the chance to move that group.
I was just saying, we were being very, very nice to each other, but through my own stupidity, I ended up having one explorer just left on one tile.
Oh.
So it was, but let's go back. So you designed this with Brett Gilbert, who you also designed Elysium with, yeah?
Yes.
When did the idea for this game happen? Was that before Elysium? Was it as a result of Elysium?
I'm pretty sure it was after Elysium. I'm thinking back right now. I think it was probably sometime in 2014, I think. Either late 2013 or early 2014. It was certainly after Elysium, and I think we had been working together actually for quite some time at that point. Elysium wasn't the first game we ever designed together. There are a few as yet unpublished designs that we completed, and we sort of have a regular way that we're working on, 2 or 3 games together at any one time, and this was one of the next games in the sort of the things that we were working on. And I think we wanted to do something definitely lighter with this game. Probably Brett would agree with me that he likes to design generally lighter, more elegant designs, if you will. And I tend to skew towards the slightly more complex. And I think with something like Elysium, for example, is very much, if you think about our range, it's pretty much on my range and really at the edge of what Brett would do. Whereas Costa Rica is something much more in the middle, and I think we really wanted just something that was a bit more direct. Brett had actually had an idea for a game where you were trying to track animals. So the idea was that you would be sort of you'd be sort of uncovering the trails of animals and trying to sort of follow them. And there would be sort of a competitive element to trying to guess where that animal was going to go. You essentially were trying to guess where the tracks would end up. And I think that was going to take place on a hex tile board, much like Costa Rica has. I should say this is the best account I can remember. So Brett, at some point, may contradict me. And
you should maybe think about drinking less.
Yes, that's true. I mean, people keep telling me, but I just forget.
Well, I believe, actually, I've got this theory that it's all a medical conspiracy to stop us being funny and sexy.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you're drunk right now, Ben, but you're doing a pretty good job.
I mean, I'm pretty much never sober. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that explains everything, really. And then moving from that sort of initial idea stage, what I can remember probably the first prototype was actually quite similar to what we had. It had different terrains. And somehow we'd moved to just collecting animals. I don't think we ever made a prototype where you're trying to track this one mythical or two mythical animals. And you were all in little jeeps. And I think you pretty much had some similar mechanics in that you were flipping tiles over. I think there was only one expedition. So there was this idea that you were trying to, on your turn when you were the expedition leader, you could choose where that jeep was going. And you were essentially trying to push it in one direction as much on your turn. And then maybe the other player would, move it somewhere and you had this idea that you wanted the Jeep to go to a particular direction or something like that. So it already had that kind of, I suppose, shared group dynamic sort of thing where, when you are sort of a part of a group, you have some control sometimes over the group, but other people have a say in what they're doing. And yeah, I think apart from that, there wasn't any I can't think of any point where it made some great leap. I think from that point, we sort of iterated and discovered, for example, it's much more interesting to have multiple groups on the board that players can move. At some point we introduced the mosquitoes that you needed some limit on how many tiles a player possibly could get. Although it is still very possible in the current game if you're, and actually a really good strategy for all those people listening who want to try and win their first game. If you're the only person left on an expedition, because everyone else has got out before you and taken animals, that's very powerful because you can just keep moving as much as you want. Nobody's going to stop you, as long as you don't find any mosquitoes, of course. Mosquitoes came in as an element to sort of balance that. And then, yeah, I think it sort of played very well. I think there was also, a definite inspiration from, this is where I'm going to try and remember whether it was inspiration or whether it was by chance, but I definitely think of a game like Abyss.
Or theft.
Yes, or theft, which I'm not sure Bruno would say to it, but I'm not sure if you might have played Abyss. So it has a similar mechanic in that you're drafting cards and basically somebody's the leader. It's not exactly the same, but you reveal a card and then going around the table, players have a choice to buy that card. If they buy that card, they give you the money. And essentially, if nobody buys that card, it comes back around to you. You have a choice to buy it. Or you could just flip another card and then everyone has a bit more choice and you go around doing the same sort of thing. So I think I was sort of interested in mechanics like this where, you have sort of a changing, accumulating pot that everyone gets sort of a choice to take or to leave.
Yeah, Push Your Luck as a mechanic is really good fun. I have an issue with the game being just a pure push your luck game because, as I say, you're left to chance and, you've no real control apart from your own desire to push forward, whereas this game there are definite times when it makes sense to go on and there are definite times when it makes sense to stop. And also you have to control, what I find really interesting is you have to control your own sensibleness. I found, because I think part of the reason I lost was at the beginning, I thought, okay, they're 2 frogs. That seems good. So I just took the frogs. And then by the end of the game, people are traveling further and further and further.
Yeah, I mean, if I can ask, how many players did you play it with?
3.
3, yeah. So I think another really interesting part of the game that we never intended for actually, but is the game plays actually really differently with different numbers of players. I mean, the mechanics are all the same, apart from there's a small change that you can play with for 2 players, but just the fact of the number of tiles is always the same for the number of players. So you sort of talk about your sensibleness, your approach might actually work very well in a 5-player game, because in 5 players, it's very, very tight. You're all fighting over a certain number of tiles, and sometimes taking only 2 tiles is definitely the right move. But in 3 players, you've got to and in 2 players, you've got to fight that urge and sort of, you've got to think about what's the sort of the expected number of tiles I should get on each thing. And that feeling definitely changes on each player count. And I think it's different. And I don't think there's any one best or worst. I think it's actually quite interesting at different counts.
Does it work with 2? It doesn't look like a game that would be obviously great with 2.
So you can play with exactly the same rules, and it runs particularly well. But there is one additional rule that we'd suggest you play with 2 players. Is essentially you set up each player would have 2 colors. So it's almost like a 4-player game, but somebody each controls 2 colors, which actually introduces sort of even another layer of strategy, because when you take tiles, then you have a choice about which color you take off that expedition, and you collect the tiles separately. So for the set scoring, you're worry about like, oh, my blue player, he needs to get, these 3 animals, and I have to worry about where they are. But at the same point, you have a little bit of extra choice when you take somebody off an expedition, if you still have both of the colors that you control on that expedition. So I think there's even a bit more of sort of cat and mouse. I think in 2 players, actually, it's quite fascinating, because it's so zero-sum isn't really the word, but it's so direct about when I have my choice about do I take it or pass, I know you're immediately going to have this choice. And I think it's very tight in working out what's the value of that set of tiles to me. Do I think you're going to take that, or do I think you're going to let me reveal another tile, and this sort of thing. So I think it's still definitely interesting. I wouldn't say it doesn't work. And I think I've enjoyed it when I play 2 players.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about the process to publication. How difficult was it to get the game published? For instance, has the nomination for the Kennerspiel aided you with regards to getting your foot through the door with people?
It might have. However, Brett and I have been meeting publishers. We usually go to meet publishers as a group, as the 2 of us, since Essen 2012. And so we got Elysium is in the Kennerspiel last year, so that's 2015. So actually, I think probably the more important thing is we've been building up relationships with these publishers over the past 3 or 4 years. That's the main thing that helps people see your games. I think the fact that we have had games published already, and in the case of some publishers now that have already worked with us, that usually helps, because hopefully, well, we like to think we're not too terrible to work with, so hopefully publishers are happy to do it again. But I think it's that I don't know if it's a reputation, but I think if you have the image of someone who's, responsible and making games that, when a publisher, you might show a lot of games to a publisher, and a publisher might not take anything. For example, we met, so Mayfair, for example, I had met with Mayfair at least 2 or 3 times before the meeting in which we showed Alex Costa Rica. In that time, they hadn't really taken any of our games. But I think that's not always because the games aren't good. It might just be, as I'm sure as other people on the show have said, getting a game published is, it's a lot of hard work, but it's also luck. There's a certain amount of luck. You just have to be in the right place, and the publisher wants a particular game and you have it. But so if a publisher... In
Germany, it's published through Alia, is that right?
No, through Lookout. So
Mayfair, it's Lookout in Germany. Yeah,
so Mayfair controls and owns a controlling stake in Lookout. So they essentially release the same games now. For example, the recently awarded Kennerspiel, I'm not sure if Isle of Skye also had a Mayfair, is through Mayfair in the States. In any case, so we'd shown, I think, Alex obviously liked what we're doing, and that helps them. Publishers happy to look at more games, and then you just keep flipping a coin or rolling the dice enough times, and you get lucky, I think.
And so what's the future for Costa Rica? Does it stand alone? Will you design expansions for it? And also on top of this as well, because Elysium seems to me to be a game that seems almost infinitely expandable, sort of easily expandable. Is there going to be something for Elysium coming out too?
Yeah, so on the question of Costa Rica first, I think the first thing is we're going to have to see how the game goes. We haven't designed any expansions. I think we're really happy how the game stands. I think it's not to us, well, at least to myself, I haven't asked Brett this, but I think the game does stand really well on its own, and I can't think of a really clear way how I would expand it. And I like the simplicity of it. There's a part of me that doesn't want to interrupt that. But that being said, I never say never, and who knows, if it's really successful, then I'm sure we could think of something. But so at this point, no plans.
I'm not tempting fate here, but it seems slap bang in that sort of Spiel des Jahres weight.
Well, that's very kind of you. Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think the other thing you kind of learn as you keep going in this industry is that, publishers always want to publish games that do very, very well. And they probably have the most experience, certainly more experience than myself, when trying to choose the right games. And they still don't always get it right. For example, nobody can predict what's going to do well. So I think I just sort of, time will tell. And I mean, look, I'm really happy with the game. I don't personally mind if it sells well or not. I'm proud of it. I think I'm glad people are enjoying it. I enjoy the game. We played with, we'd been sent some production copies and played on last Friday night and still really enjoyed it. So I'm happy with it, and no matter what happens. The other thing, with Elysium, I suppose we probably can say publicly, I suppose.
Are we getting a scoop here?
Well, it's not a very exciting scoop, I'm afraid, but that there won't be any expansion for Elysium, I'm afraid.
Oh, that's not the kind of scoop we wanted.
No, I know. It's not going to drive too many listeners to joy, but it just for various reasons it sort of didn't work out. Although there were certainly things designed, so who knows what could happen. It does exist, and maybe we'll release things as sort of as a print play or something. I'm not sure, but I haven't really spoken to Brett. But that's that for Elysium. But I agree, it was it's a bit of a pity, and the game does lend itself to that. But I'm still very glad with how the base game plays, and I still really enjoy it.
Absolutely. So just one more thing, one final question: what's coming next?
It's a good question. It has been announced, yeah. So there is a game with Crash of Games that I know Patrick has talked about on his video blog. So it's another game with Brett. It's a small card game where players are building... I'm not sure what they're building now, actually. Yes, but anyway, it'll be a small card game for sort of 2 to 5 players. I'm not sure exactly when it's going to be out. Might be out later this year. Apart from that, I don't think I can say anything else. Apart to promise that there is more to come. There's plenty of things on the horizon. A few projects got moved back from this year to 2017. For example, Brett and I did visit Yellow, and it wasn't just a social visit, last month. So there might be things on the horizon there. So yeah, I mean, there's plenty of stuff in the hopper. And I think I said last time when I was on this show, I never know what I'm supposed to say or not. So I tend to just err on the side of being conservative.
Yeah, err on the side of caution. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But don't err on the side of being conservative, because that makes you an evil person.
I'm learning that. I shall err on the side of caution.
I mean, because you live currently in the post-apocalyptic Mad Max world that is the United Kingdom.
That is true. I have a Czech girlfriend, so I'm one of those people that's facing an interesting decision in this post-Brexit world. But anyway.
Oh God, move to the Czech Republic. Get out. Even rats leave a sinking ship. So anyway, I'd just like to say thanks very much for coming on the show.
Oh, not at all. Thank you, Ben.
And because you've got so much coming out in the future, I'm sure we'll hear from you again.
Yes, well, I hope to see you and talk to you again sometime, Ben. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. At Essen, maybe.
Yes.
So Matthew Dunstan, thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thanks, man. Bye.